Most people see Marcus Aurelius and Machiavelli as complete opposites. One talks about peace, virtue, and self-control. The other talks about power, strategy, and survival. One sounds like the kind man, the other sounds like the dangerous man. But here's what most people miss. Both men spent their lives trying to answer the same question. How do you survive a difficult world without losing control of yourself? Marcus Aurelius answered that question from inside the mind. Machiavelli answered it from inside politics and human behavior. One teaches how to stay steady, the other teaches how to stay protected. And when you study both together, you begin to understand something important. Being a good person is not enough. And being powerful is not enough either. You need both inner discipline and outer awareness. The reason these two men still matter hundreds of years later is because human nature has not changed. People still lie. People still chase status. People still betray trust when fear or ambition gets involved. The modern world looks different from ancient Rome or Renaissance Italy, but the psychology is almost identical. You still see it at work, in friendships, in business, in leadership, even inside families. Marcus Aurelius spent years trying to understand how emotions affect judgment. Machiavelli spent years watching how power changes people. One studied the internal world, the other studied the external world, and together they create a complete picture of reality. Before we begin, drop this affirmation in the comments. I am calm, aware, and unshakable. Marcus Aurelius understood something most people learn very late in life. Pain becomes worse when you refuse to accept reality. A lot of people spend months, sometimes years, asking, why did this happen to me? But that question keeps you stuck. It does not change anything. It just holds you in place while life keeps moving. Life does not promise fairness. People lose jobs. Relationships end. Plans fall apart. People let you down. None of this is new. What matters is what you do after it happens. Think about two people facing the same loss. One breaks down, complains constantly and stays angry. The other feels the same pain, but slowly regains control, adjusts, and keeps going. Same situation, very different outcome. The difference is not talent or luck, it is mindset. Marcus Aurelius was not preaching from a comfortable place. He was emperor of Rome. He dealt with wars, betrayal, and ungrateful people in his own family. He was surrounded by pressure every single day, and he still had to make clear decisions and lead a massive empire without falling apart. What kept him grounded was a practice, not a personality trait. He wrote in his private journal, what we now call meditations, reminders to himself not to react immediately, not to let one bad moment define his entire day, and not to treat difficulty like a personal attack from the universe. He believed every hard moment was a chance to either grow or collapse. That framing changes everything. Most people treat pain like an interruption, like the bad thing was not supposed to happen. But Marcus Aurelius saw difficulty as the actual material that builds character. Here is the practical side of this. When something goes wrong, most people's first instinct is to fight the reality of it. They replay the situation. They look for someone to blame. They talk about it to anyone who will listen. And none of that processing actually moves you forward. It just keeps the wound open. At some point, you have to stop fighting what already happened and deal with what is actually in front of you right now. The past does not change. What you do next is the only thing still under your control. He also wrote something that still feels sharp today. The obstacle is the way. The very thing blocking you is the path forward. Not around it, through it. If a business fails, the failure is showing you something. If a relationship ends, it is revealing something real about compatibility or timing. If you lose a job, that loss may be redirecting you somewhere better. That does not mean loss is not painful. It means the pain itself can carry information worth listening to. There is also something he wrote about perspective that is worth sitting with. He reminded himself constantly that most things which feel urgent and devastating right now will matter very little in 10 years. The argument that consumed your whole week will be forgotten. The humiliation that felt career-ending will pass. The opinion of the person who dismissed you will stop mattering. That is not him telling you to minimize your feelings. It is him giving you a longer lens to see through, so the short-term pain does not completely take over your decision-making. He also talked a lot about impermanence, that everything changes, including your current circumstances. The bad stretch you are in right now is temporary. The people causing you problems will move on. The difficulty that feels permanent is almost never actually permanent. Holding that truth does not make pain go away, but it makes the pain feel like something you can get through rather than something you are trapped in forever. Pain does not define you. Your response to it does. The ability to feel something hard without letting it control your choices is one of the most valuable things you can build in yourself. And it is a skill, not a personality trait you either have or do not. You practice it, and you get steadier over time. Machiavelli spent his life watching how people behave when power, fear, or self-interest gets involved. And one thing became very clear. Being a good person does not automatically protect you. A lot of people assume that being honest and loyal earns the same back. Sometimes it does. But when pressure shows up, priorities shift fast. You see this everywhere. Someone praises you for years, then disappears the moment you stop being useful to them. That does not always make them a bad person. It makes them human. And Machiavelli believed that smart people should stop being surprised by that. He was not saying the world is hopeless. He was saying that blind trust without observation, creates unnecessary problems. He believed people should pay attention to patterns, not just words. Who shows up during hard moments? Who changes their behavior when power enters the room? Who treats you differently based on what they can gain? Those patterns matter more than what people say. Imagine a colleague you have genuinely helped over the years. You covered for them. You spoke well of them to the right people. The relationship feels solid. Then a promotion opens up. Suddenly the dynamic shifts. Information stops flowing both ways. Small things get pointed out to leadership that paint you in a bad light. The same person who was warm and appreciative is now quietly competing against you. They did not turn into a different person overnight. The stakes just changed, and self-interest became the stronger force. Machiavelli would say, do not be shocked by that, and more importantly, do not wait until you are already in that situation to start paying attention. He also made a point that most people overlook. He was not telling anyone to distrust everyone from the start. He was saying that trust should be earned slowly, through consistent behavior over time, not through words alone, and definitely not through how much you want to believe someone is good. Wanting to believe someone is trustworthy is not the same as having proof they are. He wrote about strategic disclosure too. Completely open, transparent people often get taken advantage of, not because they are weak, but because they share too much too soon. In a perfect world, honesty should always be rewarded. In the actual world, too much honesty at the wrong time hands power to people who have not earned it yet. That does not mean lie. It means be thoughtful about what you share, with who and when. Choosing silence is not dishonesty. It is judgment. He also warned against relying too heavily on any one person or group. If a single person controls your opportunities, your reputation, or your financial situation, you are exposed the moment that relationship shifts. Spread your trust and your dependence carefully. He also wrote about the danger of appearing too eager to please. When you make it obvious that keeping peace matters more to you than holding your standards, people quickly learn that pushing back gets results. They figure out they can renegotiate things that should stay fixed, and the person who started out wanting to be liked ends up being quietly taken advantage of. The big takeaway from Machiavelli is simple. Awareness protects you better than wishful thinking. Not paranoia, just clear eyes. Stop ignoring warning signs because you want things to work out. That is not optimism. That is just avoiding reality. And reality catches up eventually. Most people think confidence comes from feeling important. Marcus Aurelius saw it differently. He believed people become emotionally fragile when their self-worth depends on attention, praise, or approval from others. When that is your foundation, any criticism feels like an attack. Any disagreement feels like a threat. Any moment of being ignored feels like a crisis. And that is exactly what Marcus Aurelius worked against in himself, not because he was naturally calm, but because he knew how destructive ego-driven reactions could be. Think about how many arguments happen simply because someone cannot handle a disagreement without needing to win it. The ego always wants validation. It always wants the last word. And once it takes over, judgment goes out the window. People say things they cannot take back. They turn small issues into personal battles. They carry grudges over things that did not matter to begin with. Think about the last time someone criticized you or disagreed with you strongly. What was your first reaction? Did you immediately look for a way to defend yourself? Did you feel a need to explain why they were wrong? Most people do. And that reaction is the ego protecting itself, not you actually thinking through the situation. Marcus Aurelius drew a clear line between two very different things that often get confused. The first is arrogance, which says, "I don't care what anyone thinks because I'm above all of you." The second is genuine steadiness, which says, "I care about doing the right thing, but whether you approve of me or not is outside my control, and I'm not going to let it shake me." Those are not the same thing. One is ego pretending to be strength. The other is actual strength. He also wrote about the real cost of fame and approval, that both are temporary and unreliable. Opinions change. People who praised you today may criticize you tomorrow for reasons that have nothing to do with you. Building your self-worth on something that shifts, that easily means you are always vulnerable. The freedom he was pointing toward is this. When you anchor your confidence to your own values and your own behavior, not to how people respond to you, you stop needing the outside world to constantly confirm that you are okay. That kind of confidence holds up under criticism. It does not throw a fit when things do not go as planned. It does not need to turn every interaction into a performance. There is also a practical cost to ego that rarely gets discussed. It makes you exhausting to be around. People who constantly need validation, who react to every slight, who make disagreements personal, they drain the people around them. And over time, those people quietly start pulling back. The irony is that chasing approval through ego almost always produces the opposite result. People respect steadiness. They are drawn to someone who does not need constant reassurance. They trust someone who can hear hard feedback without falling apart. That is what Marcus Aurelius was building, not a version of himself that was cold or indifferent, but a version that was genuinely stable. someone who could carry pressure without it showing, someone who could take criticism, consider it honestly, and respond with clarity instead of defensiveness. That is rare, and it starts with recognizing how much of your daily stress is actually just your ego reacting to things that do not require a reaction. Here is a small habit Marcus Aurelius practiced. Whenever something triggered an emotional reaction in him, he would ask, "Will this still matter in a year? In 5 years? Is this actually threatening something important, or does it just feel that way right now?" 9 times out of 10, the honest answer was that it did not actually matter much at all. The ego just made it feel urgent. That one pause, that one honest question, can redirect a lot of bad decisions before they happen. The goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to think before you act, especially when feeling something strongly is pushing you toward acting fast. Being liked and being respected are not the same thing. Machiavelli made this point clearly, and it holds up everywhere you look. A person who constantly tries to please everyone almost always loses their authority over time. Managers who avoid hard conversations lose control of their teams. Parents who never say no create chaos at home. People who cannot say no to anyone end up burned out and quietly resentful. Machiavelli watched leaders destroy their own influence by being too afraid to disappoint people. They avoided hard decisions. They let bad behavior slide. They kept bending standards to keep temporary approval. And what happened? People stopped trusting them, not because they were bad people, but because nobody knew where they actually stood. Imagine a manager who hates conflict. They never give real feedback because they do not want anyone to feel bad. When someone underperforms, they make excuses instead of addressing it. When 2 team members clash, the manager soothes both sides, but changes nothing. Over time, the high performers get frustrated. The underperformer never improves because nobody told them the truth. And the unresolved conflict grows into something much worse. That manager, who desperately wanted to be liked, ends up being neither liked nor respected. Machiavelli's point was never that you should be harsh or fear-driven. He was very clear that using fear without any respect creates resentment that eventually explodes. Cruelty is not strength. It is instability with a short shelf life. What he was pointing to is something more specific, that real authority comes from consistency. When you say something, you mean it. When you set a standard, you hold it. When you make a decision, you stand behind it. That kind of track record earns something that approval chasing cannot buy: genuine trust. People do not actually want someone who agrees with everything they say. They want someone who tells them the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. Someone who makes clear decisions and follows through. Someone who treats their own word as something worth honoring. There is also a personal cost to always chasing approval that Machiavelli does not spell out directly, but which runs under everything he writes. You gradually lose your own voice. When you spend your energy trying to figure out what everyone else wants to hear, you slowly stop knowing what you actually think. You start second-guessing your own instincts. Your judgment gets quieter. And at some point, you look up and realize you've been living according to standards that everyone else designed, and you have no idea what you actually stand for. The way out of that is to define your standards first. Know what you will and will not accept. Know what you are willing to say when it is uncomfortable to say it. Know where you draw the line and actually draw it when you get there. Respect grows from that. Not from being cold, not from being aggressive, from being clear. And here is the thing. People who genuinely respect you will stick around even when you make decisions they do not like. They may push back, they may disagree, but they will not disappear. because they know you are someone who acts with integrity rather than someone who just tells people what they want to hear. That kind of relationship, built on respect instead of approval, is a lot more durable and a lot more honest. And here is one more thing worth noting. The people who genuinely respect you tend to give you better feedback. They tell you when something is not working because they trust that you can handle it. The people who only like you, the ones whose connection is built on you always making them comfortable, tend to go quiet when the real problems show up. They disappear or go along with things instead of speaking up. That is a much weaker foundation to build anything serious on. This is where Marcus Aurelius and Machiavelli connect most clearly. Both believed that emotional reactions, left unchecked, consistently work against you. Marcus Aurelius focused on the inner cost. He believed emotions cloud judgment, and cloudy judgment leads to choices you regret. Machiavelli focused on the outer cost. He believed emotional people are predictable, and predictable people are easy to manipulate. Both are right, and together they build a very strong case for taking emotional control seriously. Think about the decisions you regret most. Where did they come from? Almost every time, when people actually trace it back, the decision came from an emotional place. Anger, hurt, pride, fear. The need to feel powerful in a moment when you felt small, and in that moment, it felt completely justified. Emotions are very convincing in the short term. That is what emotions do. They do not just push you toward a behavior. They build an entire case for why that behavior is correct and necessary. They make the impulsive move feel like the only reasonable option. Marcus Aurelius wrote about the gap between what happens and how you interpret it. When someone ignores you, your emotion says, "That was disrespect." But maybe they did not see you. Maybe something is going on in their life. The emotion responded to your interpretation, and interpretations are not always accurate. He believed that even a small pause between what happens and how you respond dramatically improves your decisions. Not because you stop feeling, but because you give your rational mind a chance to participate before the emotion runs everything. Machiavelli adds a layer to this that is easy to miss. From a strategic standpoint, emotional people hand power to anyone who knows their triggers. If someone knows what makes you angry, they can provoke it on purpose to throw you off balance. If they know you make impulsive moves when you feel threatened, they can manufacture situations that feel threatening just to push you into mistakes. Emotional predictability is a vulnerability. And in any competitive environment, whether that is a workplace, a negotiation, or even a personal conflict, people pay attention to those vulnerabilities, sometimes without even realizing they are doing it. The controlled person in the room almost always has the advantage. Not because they feel nothing, but because they do not broadcast every feeling they have the moment they have it. Real emotional control is not suppression. People who bottle everything up do not become calm. They become pressurized, and eventually they explode, usually at the wrong moment, over something that does not deserve it. What actually works is simpler. Feel what you feel. Name it honestly to yourself, and choose your response instead of just having one. That process can happen in 2 minutes if you make it a habit. Marcus Aurelius came back to this in his journal again and again because he understood that this is not a switch you flip once. It is something you build through daily practice. Some days you manage it well, some days you do not, but the practice itself changes how you move through the world over time. The person who develops this, who can sit with difficult feelings without acting on them impulsively, who can hold their composure under pressure, who does not get baited into reacting, becomes genuinely hard to rattle. And that steadiness, in a world where most people are easily provoked, stands out. Marcus Aurelius teaches self-control. Machiavelli teaches awareness. One helps you manage yourself. The other helps you read the world around you. Both are necessary. There are two ways this can go wrong when you only take one side. If you go all in on the Stoic path, pure acceptance, inner peace, letting everything go, you can drift into a kind of passivity that looks noble but leaves you blind. You rationalize behavior that should concern you. You keep extending trust that has been broken. You mistake avoiding conflict with being virtuous, and eventually someone takes advantage of that. If you go all in on the Machiavellian side, strategy, suspicion, always looking for the angle, you can slide into paranoia dressed up as wisdom. You start seeing manipulation everywhere. You overcalculate every relationship. You stop being able to connect with anyone because you are always looking for the catch. That is not strength. That is isolation. The combination is what actually works. Here is what it looks like in real life. Someone in your world starts sending mixed signals. Their words and their behavior are not matching up. Something feels off. The purely Stoic response says, focus on what you control. Accept that people are flawed. Do not disturb your peace over it. The purely Machiavellian response says, assume bad intent. Pull back. Do not show any vulnerability. The balanced response says, stay calm. Do not panic or make any sudden moves. And at the same time, pay close attention. Watch the pattern over time, not just in one moment. Let the evidence build. Do not project good intent where the evidence does not support it, but do not project bad intent where there is still real uncertainty. Gather more information before drawing any conclusions. That is Marcus Aurelius and Machiavelli working together. You stay grounded enough to think clearly, and you stay sharp enough to see what is actually there. Marcus Aurelius gives you the patience to gather real evidence before making a call. He gives you the composure to have hard conversations without turning them into fights. He keeps you from making decisions out of panic or wounded pride. Machiavelli gives you the framework to understand what you're looking at. He reminds you that behavior shifts under pressure. That loyalty can be conditional. That awareness is not a betrayal of goodwill. It is just being honest about what you see. The most capable people in any area of life tend to carry some version of both. They are not naive. They understand how people work, and they take that seriously. But they are also not paranoid. They have an inner steadiness that does not crack under pressure or collapse when someone disappoints them. That combination reads as confidence to the people around them, as someone who is both trustworthy and clear-eyed, not easily rattled, not easily fooled. That is rare. And the reason it is rare is because it requires working on two very different things at the same time, your inner world and your outer awareness. Most people prefer one or the other. Looking inward feels vulnerable. Looking outward at potential problems feels uncomfortable and a little cynical. But both are real, and neglecting either one leaves you only half prepared for what life actually brings. That is the whole point of putting these two men together, not to become a philosopher or a political schemer, just to become someone who can handle themselves and understand others at the same time, without sacrificing one for the sake of the other. And here is what that actually looks like from the outside. People who carry both of these qualities do not need to announce themselves. They do not have to tell you they are calm or aware or hard to manipulate. You just notice it. They do not react to bait. They do not fall apart under criticism. They see things clearly. They make decisions without a lot of drama. And they do not need your approval to feel okay about themselves. That is what both of these men were pointing toward, in their very different ways. Not a perfect person, just a more complete one. Marcus Aurelius teaches you how to face hardship without falling apart on the inside. Machiavelli teaches you how to deal honestly with people, power, and ambition. One protects your peace, the other protects your position, and maybe that is exactly why both men still matter today. Because life still tests people in the same ways. Stress, pressure, betrayal, ego, fear, uncertainty. Most people lose their balance somewhere in there. They become too emotional, too trusting, too aggressive, too dependent on what other people think. But these two philosophies together build something more durable. Calmness with awareness, discipline with realism, confidence without arrogance. Here is what I want you to actually take with you. You do not need to read 100 books to use these ideas. Start small. The next time something genuinely frustrates you, do not respond right away. Give it a few minutes. Let the first wave settle. Then ask yourself, what is the most useful move right now? That is Marcus Aurelius, right there in your daily life. And the next time someone's behavior starts to feel off, when their words and their actions are not matching, stop making excuses for it right away. Just watch a little longer, notice the pattern, let the behavior speak. That is Machiavelli, right there in your daily life. Neither of those requires you to become a different person. They just require more intention than most people bring to those moments. And over time, those small habits build into something real. You become harder to shake, harder to manipulate, clearer in your thinking, more honest with yourself about what you see. That is the kind of person both of these men, in their very different ways, were pointing toward. If this video made you think, if even one idea landed and felt useful, hit the like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it now. There is a lot more content like this coming, and I want you here for it. Stay grounded, stay aware, and keep building the version of yourself you actually respect. Because in a world where most people are running on autopilot, reacting to everything, trusting blindly, chasing approval, being the person who actually thinks clearly and sees clearly is one of the most powerful things you can be. These two men figured that out centuries apart, and they were both right.